Hey everyone, and welcome back to Roxanne's Weekly. This time we're going to be looking at a few stories in depth rather than going through a bunch of headlines, so hopefully you'll find this format a little bit more enticing, a little bit more impressive, a little bit more journalistically savvy. Who knows? Let's see how it goes. Kicking things off, we have to talk about Machine Head. They have recently released a new song, Do or Die. One would assume that it's a standalone single rather than leading up to a new album. It's not been all that long since Catharsis last came out, and due to tumultuous times with the lineup and the addition of new members, it seems a little early to be rushing into things like this. Do or Die is certainly a return to the more thrashy direction that Machine Head perhaps strayed away from in Catharsis, which led to some criticism from fans. However, a point of contention so far has been the lyrical content of the song, in which Rob Flynn takes on his online haters. People have described the lyrics as childish, ill-informed, as triggered, if you want to use that namby-pamby word. This all led to Flynn taking to Instagram to voice his displeasure with people's dislike of the track. Describing the detractors of the song as bitch-ass trolls who keep whining and menstruating about how Do or Die has lyrics from the band Dope, he claims that for the moronic new metal brains, he has been saying "come on motherfucker come on" or some derivative thereof in their songs since 1993. He goes on to cite The Roof is on Fire by Rockmaster Scott and the Dynamic 3 as inspiration for this lyrical phrasing, turns his anger back to the audience by describing their twat-hole moaning as about cringeworthy lyrics, undermines Pantera by suggesting that they're not exactly Edgar Allan Poe, and then goes on to disrespect Dope by claiming that no one listens to them. Edsel Dope responded in a very measured and eloquent manner, pointing out the fact that although Dope maybe are not as high profile as Machine Head, they do have more monthly Spotify listeners. At the time of recording, this has led to Rob Flynn seemingly calling a truce, claiming that he meant no ill will towards Dope and no disrespect, also saying that they are both beaten by Crazy Town's Butterfly. It seems like mutually assured destruction, but for now it feels like things are settling down, so that's for the best. It's not just the lyrics of Do or Die that are drawing criticism, however. He is no stranger to a checkered past with lyrical content. Just look at the use of the N-word in Bastards from Catharsis. And it does feel as though he enjoys stirring up controversy. Whatever the reasons for Flynn's outburst, whether it's backlash to the backlash against Catharsis, or if he just genuinely feels very passionately about this new song and that it really is some of their best work, is unclear. There is a link to the song down below. You can go and listen to it at your own leisure and make your own mind up about the lyrics, but for now, understand that there is a bit of an internet argument going on, because that never happens online. On the subject of Edsel Dope, he has denied claims that he is Zero, the enigmatic and masked frontman of Static X. On October 12th, Edsel posted a lengthy statement on the band's Facebook page quashing rumours implying Zero's telltale neck tattoo was in fact a Photoshop job. He says, quote, "I have quietly sat through all of the speculation and have thoroughly enjoyed the ride. Yesterday's internet eruption reminded me of an episode of Scooby-Doo. It's incredible how far some people will go to get attention or clicks, so let me remind you how easy it is to slap a little tribal neck tattoo onto someone in Photoshop." So it seems fairly cut and dry that Dope is denying the allegations that he is Zero in Static X. However, it does seem unusual that someone would go to the trouble to Photoshop these images purely to undermine Dope or even antagonise him. The truth will be revealed eventually, and you know that we'll be reporting on it as soon as it happens. Slipknot's Sean Clown Crayon has said that he'd like to create some fascinating art in 2020. The artist and keg player in Slipknot, one of the driving forces behind the band, said in a statement, "I'd love to make more books, have some gallery shows and stuff like that. I love making our music, but now that the album's out and it went to #1, I need to take some time for myself and go do some other shit. Above all else, I really want to push myself to make some fascinating art this year." What kind of format this art will take is unclear. Crayon has proven himself to be a filmmaker as well as musician, so who knows what will come, but rest assured, it will certainly be interesting at the very least. In perhaps the most bizarre piece of news this week, former Heck members and now members of Haggard Cats, Matt Reynolds and Tom Marsh, are going to encase themselves in a concrete tomb for 24 hours as a form of political protest. Their press release states a rallying cry against the current political ignorance that's shutting us off from the rest of Europe. Reynolds goes on to say, "Locking yourself in a box is a stupid idea, as is Brexit. It's intentionally doing something we know is stupid and not in our best interests and puts us at risk. As touring musicians, we can see that the outlook for playing in mainland Europe post-Brexit is bleak and potentially not even viable for developing artists. We really wanted to demonstrate our feelings on the matter and put across how isolating Brexit is going to be for everyone in Britain, but from our perspective as musicians in particular, by isolating ourselves physically with bricks and mortar." This is certainly a bizarre stunt, a bit David Blaine, but it gets the point across and is certainly a unique way of thinking. If you're interested, the stunt will be live streamed on Twitch between roughly 2 p.m. and 2 p.m. on the 23rd and 24th of October. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees for 2020 have been announced, and there's a few names to get you quite excited out there if you're a rock and metal fan. The nominees are as follows: Pat Benatar, Dave Matthews Band, Depeche Mode, the Doobie Brothers, Whitney Houston, Judas Priest, Kraftwerk, MC5, Motorhead, Nine Inch Nails, The Notorious B.I.G., Rufus featuring Shaka Khan, Todd Rundgren, Soundgarden, T-Rex and Thin Lizzy. Now obviously there are a few classic bands in there, Judas Priest being a blindingly obvious shout for induction. Other more likely candidates are of course Depeche Mode, and can you imagine the 15-minute set they would play if they were inducted? It would be heavenly. And of course it would be beautiful to see Nine Inch Nails inducted, just another award for Trent Reznor to stick next to the Oscars. Biffy Clyro have given an update on their next studio album, saying that things are heating up in the vocal department with regards to a new Biffy Clyro album. Bassist James Johnston revealed that record number 8 will be coming in the first half of 2020. Some fans felt somewhat disappointed by Ellipsis. However, producer Richard Cossey says, "It's definitely a lot more rocking on this album. It's definitely a lot more rocking than Ellipsis was. It's a work in progress and quite over-yielding beast at the moment, but we'll get it into shape over the next few months." He goes on to state that he believes that Balance Not Symmetry ended up not being particularly cinematic, not quite hitting the nail on the head for a film score then, and says, "To me, it was more like an album made by a bunch of different bands. There's a lot of rock songs, verses and choruses on there. It's probably the least soundtracky soundtrack album that has ever been made." Not an unfair assessment on Cossey's part, and based on this candid interview, we can assume that he is being genuine when he says the next album will be more rocking. In an interview with Heavy Metal New York, legendary grindcore singer Mark Barney Greenway of Napalm Death gave an update on their new album. The follow-up to 2015's Apex Predator Easy Meat will contain a guest appearance by guitarist Mitch Harris, who has been taking a leave of absence from Napalm Death since 2014 to focus on family life. Greenway says, "We've been kind of promising something for quite a while, but unforeseen circumstances kind of got in the way. This one has taken a lot longer. We're all good with that now. We've kind of accepted the fact it's taken quite a while. But yeah, we're almost ready to put it out." He goes on to say that he is not particularly pleased with himself that it's taken this long, but they are happy with the end result. He describes the album as containing stuff that is almost noise rock, and says that the theme will be the other. He says he wants to challenge the way of thinking of people who perceive migrants as the other. Quote, "like not human almost." Not only is it the other immigrants or whatever you call people that migrate, there's other things as well, other people who are treated as the other. I would suggest simply, generally, that it's not necessary to treat people differently. So it seems like we're getting the same old Napalm Death, which is no bad thing in my book. It'll be a socio-political record with some exciting musical elements, all fused in a manner that we can't comprehend until we finally get it in our hands. Let's hope it comes out in the earlier part of next year, because I just cannot wait. And that about wraps it up for this week's episode of Roxon's Weekly. We hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the new format. Let us know what you think down below. Give us a like and subscribe. Of course, there is always content going up on Roxon's. You can check out the link to our fabulous site, if I do say so myself, in the description below. Next week, there will be reviews of, to name a few, Rings of Saturn, Alcest, Mayhem, and many, many more, as well as some interview features arriving, all the latest news. So keep your eyes peeled on Roxon's, and until next week, I shall bid you farewell.